Welcome back to the Igniting Dreams Within podcast, where we solve life and business problems that transform businesses and individuals into happier and more fulfilled ones. Wow. It's been a while. It's been a while since we had the podcast. And thank you for tuning in even after such a long time. It's really been a long time. And 2020 was definitely wow. A life hitting ass kicking year. A life hitting and ass kicking year. And ever since the pandemic began, I burnt out. And I didn't feel that the podcast or doing the podcast was worth the energy. Considering the fact that you are going through some tough times, and it's really tough to create a podcast, especially when you are me, where you are always working. And ever since the pandemic began, I've been doing a lot of private work, one-on-one coaching and mentoring, coaching and mentorship, and training and developing churches. It's really been a great journey. I don't know where would I be if I hadn't. I don't know. For me, I thought that was the end of the podcast. I thought that I was never coming back to the podcast, because while I was busy building churches and building leadership for churches, I also created another podcast, the School of Kingdom Leadership and Management. And I thought that this one was done, but I realized that I miss you guys. I miss you guys. And unfortunately, I couldn't upload my private coaching and mentoring sessions that I was doing with my clients. We managed to build businesses. We grew organizations, and people got promotions. Maybe one day, as we go on with this podcast, I'll make sure that I have that team of mine, my first team, that when I took my business offline, when I took my business offline, online, when I took my business online, I had some people who stuck with me and said, Mr. Mawulo, no, we cannot afford to have our lives and our businesses without your mentorship and without your training of our organizations. So thankful to all of those people. I hope that one day you'll get to have them. We will get to have them on the podcast, and you will get to meet them. So what has happened? 2020. What happened in 2020 was that the pandemic was a really tough one. I also lost my show on Energy and Choice FM. That's why you haven't been listening to me on Energy and Choice FM, or even on this podcast, because most of the episodes that I did, most of them were the shows were what we spoke about on the conversations on Energy and Choice FM. I don't know why my show was cancelled. I never got any feedback or any report. But whatever the case has been or was, I hope that the organization is growing and everything is going accordingly. So that's one. I lost the show on Energy and Choice FM. Number two, I lost a dear family friend. I remember how hard that was for me. She's my granny. I call her my granny. She's my, I don't know. Culturally, in the African context, yes, she's my granny, as seen. She raised me. But particularly in this case, she was a great family friend. She's not my biological grandma, meaning that she's not from my father's side or my mother's side, but I call her granny. And I remember that the last 3 months that I was with her, and when the pandemic started, I spent some time with her Well, when I was running the mask business here, because I had a side hustle for selling masks, selling masks during the pandemic. So that was my first business that I started in the pandemic, and during that hustle and that frustration, I got a chance to sit with her. I think it was 2 to 3 months before she passed on. And I remember when I sat with her down, there were 2 or 3 lessons that I learned with her. Number one, as old as she was, she loved God so much. She loved God so much. Considering her age, and I remember the birthday that we had, her last birthday that we celebrated together with her. We celebrated it at church. She said that as old as I'm getting, I cannot afford to not be celebrating this great moment of my life without my church. And we had a blast in church. So number one, she loved God unconditionally. She loved God unconditionally. As old as she was, with the body aching and everything else, she would pick herself up, get on her crunches, and say, I'm going to the house of the Lord. I cannot afford to not fellowship with my fellow brethren. That was number one, the first lesson that I learned from her. Number two, not only did she love God, but she loved her people. She loved God and she loved people. Everyone she had a chance to speak with or to have an encounter with, she loved them very much. She loved them so much that it didn't matter. She would always call me Wanaka or my son, even though we are not biologically connected. But the love that she had for me, wow, it was amazing. And whenever I would visit her, she would ask me about my life and how everything is. So number one, she loved God. Number two, she loved people. And number three, she had a blast in life. Every time I would go and visit her, she would open her garage, and we would chill. We would chill there in the garage, and we would talk about life. We would talk about the things that I was doing in my life, how my family or how my parents were, and she was an amazing woman. And while we are sitting there in the garage with the full door opened, people passing by the gate, and she would be greeting them. She not only did she love God, not only did she love people, she was also loved by her community. So yeah, and when I lost her, first initially we lost her daughter. Wow, what a woman. What a woman. We lost her daughter. Then a few weeks later, we lost her. So that was probably one of the hardest times for me in 2022. And considering how it was the pandemic and the regulations that we had here in South Africa, I never got to go to my grand's funeral and her daughter's funeral. Wow. So it was really a tough one. So hopefully later this year I would get a chance to go and see her gravesite and get to see how and where she rested. So that was the first loss that I encountered, or 2 losses. I lost my gig on Energy and Choice FM, number 2. Then I lost a family friend, a close family friend of mine. Then came 2021. I was busy growing and developing businesses, building churches. We had so many leadership workshops, and I hope that as we continue with 2022, you will get to come to the workshops and we get to I get to help you develop your leadership. We had around almost once or sometimes even 2 times of the leadership workshops a month, and we had leadership workshops. Then we had the singles and marriage workshop also. So we had 2 types of workshop: leadership development workshops and the singles and marriage workshop. And I look forward to having you come to the leadership workshop or the singles and marriage workshop. That's what consumed majority of my, since because the pandemic was easing and the restrictions had eased up. That's when we would have in-person. That's when we would have in-person leadership workshops and singles and marriage workshops. So those were very, very fun times. And for me, I was going to just have one leadership development session. But one leadership session developed into the whole year's worth, of leadership development, leadership training and development sessions. And it became even a movement. It became a movement. And I look forward to sharing with you the details of the movement. So my dream, one day, my dream in this, my vision, and my dream in the School of Kingdom Leadership and Management is to shake Limpopo. Not only to shake Limpopo, but to shake South Africa. Not only to shake Limpopo and South Africa, but to shake Africa with the leadership movement. When you look at Africa and when you look at how the leadership in Africa is, it's really tough. So my dream is that one day I will host the biggest leadership movement in Africa, starting by Limpopo, where we will have the biggest, most transformational leadership movement. And in that leadership transformation and movement, we would shake up the economy. We would shake up the economy of Limpopo in such a way that the government would call us and say, no, we make sure that you continually have this leadership workshops once or twice or thrice a year or even quarterly. Because when you are done with these leadership workshops, not only is the economy of Polokwane or Limpopo transformed, but the lives of the leaders in government in Limpopo, the lives of the government, the lives of the communities transformed. Everyone in every kind of leadership positions, they are making an impact. That's my dream, and we would have that economic impact of 100 million rands worth. 100 million rands worth of economic impact to the economy of Limpopo. That's my dream with the School of Kingdom Leadership. We will build studios. We've got some equipment that we are buying. We will build also one of the biggest production companies in Polokwane. Because when you look at Polokwane, when everyone is in music or is in the entertainment industry, they leave Polokwane and they go to Johannesburg. And there's no one left who is building or who is shaking up Limpopo. And I want to be that person. So we will also build the biggest production company in Limpopo so that when we are having those events of ours, we would be streaming them all over the world. They will have access to our leadership training and development. So yeah, that's the School of Kingdom Leadership and Development. And probably the hardest thing for me in 2021 was losing my granny. My mother's mother. You know, for the past couple of years, I've been taking care of her. She was very, 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 very sick, and wow, what a great. The last 2 years of her life, I spent almost. I spent most of my time. If I wasn't home, and if I wasn't in my workshops, I would go and visit her for the last 2 years. For the last 2 years of her life, I spent majority of my time with her. I remember one time I wasn't signing. We had so much going on there, and yeah, I remember when I wanted to leave, I was so, when you are in when you've been busy all day and you just want to go home because. At the time, I was rushing for a workshop. Yeah, the following day, I think I was having a workshop back here in my side of Katoka at the church, and I wanted to leave. Around, I think it was 12 midnight during the pandemic when we had closure of curfew. Curfew was at 10 at the time. And after we had been busy, I wanted to go home, and she said, "No, you can't. I'm not going to let you go home. You had been so busy throughout the day. You've taken care of me. You've taken care of everyone else here. And I'm not going to let you go home. And, I spent the night with her. Yeah, it was such a great time, man. It was such a great time, man. And I remember as she got sicker and bad, when she stopped eating and when she was just in pain. And when she started to have the conversations with me about my son, I remember her words. The last conversation we had before she passed on, we were chilling there in Kamolaping and in the foyer, and she said to me, "My son, as I've grown older, I am slowly seeing the end of my life. And before my life comes to an end, I just want to say a few things to you. Number one," she said to me, "number one, you are doing truly a great job. You are doing a great job. You've taken care of my daughter, which is my mom. You've taken care of your father. And the sacrifices that you made and the price that you've paid, you gave up school, you gave up tertiary education so you could come back and take care of them. You gave up a lot of things so that you could come and assist your mom in taking care of your dad. I just want you to know that I'm watching you and I'm seeing the great work that you are doing, and I would like to encourage you to continually do it." Then she also said that God is watching, and one day God will reward you for the work that you are doing of taking good care of your parents. God will reward you. Then she also said that one day you're gonna come back. I don't know when, but one day you're gonna come and you're going to come and see me. And unfortunately, at the time when you would want to come and see me, I would not be there, because as I look at my life and as I look at how old I've gotten, I want you to know that I love you very much. I love you very much, and I'm thankful for you and the work that you are doing. We've spent so much time, and I hope that, whatever that I have taught you, I hope that whatever you've learned from me, it's or there are lessons that you would continually cherish in your heart. And I remember we were having a leadership workshop. I was coaching CEOs of companies. We had group coaching and mentoring in that particular day, on the 20th of September. And I was on fire. I was teaching the leadership workshop. And I was, I was having a great time. And my mom just came into the room and she said to me, Kukwago has left us. Or my mom has left us. And I remember trying to keep myself together, finishing off that coaching and mentoring sessions with those CEOs. And I remember afterwards when I ended, when the online session had ended, and I had some time to celebrate her life, and how painful that moment was. And I remember as the weeks leading to her funeral came by, and when I kept on reflecting on her, and my cousins and everyone else asked me to write a message that would come from us as the children, the grandchildren. And I want to share with you this message. And this message I'm going to be sharing, I had written it in my home language, Sepedi, and I will try to translate it in English for my international audience. And it goes like this. Kuku, re leboga lerato leo le re filego lona. Re leboga batswadi bao le re filego bona. Re leboga mekgwa e mebotse yeo le rutilego yona. Re leboga thupa yeo le re filego yona ge re be re tšwele tseleng. Re leboga dithuto tšeo le re filego tšona. Dipelo tša rena di a rota. Le re tlogetše re sa nagana, mara re a tseba gore bjale gona le khuditše mathata a lefase. Re tlo dula re le gopola, re tlo dula re akanya dithuto tša bophelo tšeo le rutilego tšona. Re tla dula re le gopola, re tla ruta bana ditaola tšeo le re šilego le tšona, le sepileng gabotse koko, le robale ka khutšo. And that was the final message that we wrote as the grandchildren and everyone else. And it translates, Granny, we thank you for the love that you've given us. We thank you for the great parents that you've given us. We thank you for the principles that you taught us. We thank you that you got us in line with a whip when we were out of line. We thank you for all of the lessons that you taught us. Our hearts are bleeding. You left us unexpectedly. But we are grateful, and we know that even though you have left us, you've gone to a better place. We will continually think and remember you. We will continually reflect and ponder on the lessons that you've taught us. We will continually remember you, and we will teach our children and our grandchildren the lessons that you've taught us. Have a safe journey, and may your soul rest in peace. That was the lesson, or that was the final message that I had a chance as I was celebrating her, and as I was thinking about the great change that she played in my life. That was the hardest time in my life in 2021. And as 2021 came to an end, it was really a great time. It was really a great time. And also, I think it was in 2020. Yeah, in 2020, I had a bicycle crash. Yeah, I also had a bicycle crash. So that took me out for a while because I was recovering. I was also recovering from the bicycle. In fact, in 2021, I also had a crash also. But luckily, they were painful, but not fatal to the extent that I was gone the whole year, or I was in coma. No, it was just a visit to the doctors to get the wounds cleaned and get some medication and things like that. So yeah, thank you for tuning in to this podcast. And with all of those things happening in my life, I felt I didn't have the energy to record the podcast. And I hope that this year we will go on this journey. We will go on this journey, and we'll have more of these shows. And I look forward to having you in the leadership workshop, where we will get to talk and discuss about leadership, where we will get to talk and discuss about monetizing your purpose. And if you belong to a church that requires leadership training and development, make sure that you reach out to me. Make sure that you reach out to me so that we will arrange and I come to your church and we train and develop leaders. Thank you for tuning in.